Okay, so we are here with two advocates speaking about the nomination of Nancy Beck to lead the Consumer Product Safety Commission. So my name is Beth Kemmler. I'm the Mobilization Director for Safer Chemicals, Healthy Families. And I'm here with two advocates who can introduce themselves. We're gonna have a discussion.
Sure. My name is Liz Hitchcock, and I direct Safer Chemicals, Healthy Families, and I am very happy to be joined here by my colleague from Consumer Federation of America, who can introduce herself.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to work with Safer Chemicals, Healthy Families, and speak with you today. I'm Rachel Weintraub, Legislative Director and General Counsel with Consumer Federation of America. We are a nonprofit organization made up of nonprofit organizations who work to advance the consumer interests through research, education, and advocacy.
Great. So we're here today to talk about the nomination of Nancy Beck to chair the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission. And she was recently nominated by President Trump, and our organizations oppose this nomination. We want the Senate to take action to make sure she doesn't lead that agency. And so I guess the first question that I wanted to start our discussion with is, what is the CPSC? What does it do, and why is it important?
Sure, I'll take this first. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission is an independent agency that has jurisdiction of at least 15,000 consumer products. Its mission is to protect consumers from harms posed by unsafe products. It does that in a number of ways. It has enforcement authority to enforce its laws. It can recall products. It can promulgate mandatory standards. It can collect data, educate consumers about the risk, and participate in voluntary standards as well as mandatory standard efforts.
And so, yeah.
Well, to add to what Rachel is saying about the Consumer Product Safety Commission, it is a small agency with a very big job to do. And it does have the role of protecting Americans from unsafe products in their homes. And as Beth said at the top, we are very concerned about Nancy Beck's nomination to be the chair of this very important agency. And
so I guess the next question is just, who is Nancy Beck? What's her deal?
What is her deal? Nancy Beck. Nancy Beck came onto our radar screen at Safer Chemicals, Healthy Families back at the beginning of 2017, when the Trump administration began filling spots in the leadership at the Environmental Protection Agency. Congress had just overhauled the premier chemical policy at the federal level, the Toxic Substances Control Act. And so, of course, the person who was going to get the tools to implement the new legislation was an important choice. And the administration chose Nancy Beck, who had a long career as an advocate for the chemical industry. She had worked in a senior position at the American Chemistry Council, and she then moved over to the Office of Chemical Safety and Pollution Prevention, which is the part of EPA that is in charge of enforcing chemical policy. And she got to work right away. There had been a proposal to, under the new law, finally ban paint strippers that contained a toxic chemical called methylene chloride that we knew was deadly. The proposal was made. It was out for public comment, and Nancy Beck basically backburnered that proposal. So while we would have prevented harm to workers and consumers doing DIY jobs at home, instead the methylene chloride ban sat on the back burner, and we know of 4 people who died using products containing methylene chloride to do paint stripping and finishing stripping jobs at home. She not only scuttled that rule, but she also scuttled a rule that would have banned uses of a chemical called trichloroethylene. She rewrote the rules on how EPA was actually going to evaluate the uses of chemicals that were already on the marketplace, and that includes chemicals like asbestos. And I've spent the better part of my day as listening in on a science advisory committee evaluation of how EPA is looking at asbestos, and under the rules that they established for themselves, they're doing a poor job of evaluating asbestos. And we actually went to court because the new rules and the way that they rewrote the rules was so bad. And we prevailed in court, but the EPA is still proceeding under the Nancy Beck rules. So that will mean fewer protections for workers, fewer protections for consumers, and it has made the new law not protect the public as in the way that it ought to have protected us.
I would just add that if you draw a theme from all of the important details that Liz shared, it's that she has thwarted, delayed, and put obstacles in front of critical protections throughout her career, whether at ACC, OMB, Office of OIRA, EPA, and that sort of approach has been criticized. During one of her positions, she developed a risk assessment that was highly criticized by the National Academy of Sciences of being simplistic and inappropriate. And actually even the CPSC got involved in commenting on that risk assessment and raised concerns. So due to the fact that the chair of the CPSC, which is the position that she's been nominated for, has so much power over the agenda, over the agency that has such a broad portfolio that really impacts the products that we interact with in our homes every single day, we are very concerned that her approach that we've seen throughout her career of thwarting, putting obstacles in front of, opposing regulations, is just entirely not the type of person who we think should lead this important consumer protection agency.
And so I know, she's spent time at EPA, both, during the Bush administration and during the Trump administration, and recently has spent time at the White House. Is that something you want to talk about?
She has, in her role at the White House, she has been responsible for the interagency review of proposed rules, and that means that she has scuttled a lot of what the career scientists and staff at the EPA have proposed to do about chemicals. And so her role has basically been to put the thumb on the scale for the chemical industry, and to really to represent the chemical industry's interests over the interests of public health. So we're very concerned about the role that she's taken at the White House when it comes to chemical policies. We'd be doubly concerned about any role as the chair of the Consumer Product Safety Commission. This isn't a one-year position. This is 7 years at the commission. And as one of my colleagues said, that's 7 years of bad luck for consumers.
And I would just add that there's actually a question about what her current role is. She has been at the White House. We thought at NEC, but recently she was quoted as being an OMB staffer and was involved in suppressing the CDC report on the CDC guidelines on reopening in the midst of the COVID pandemic. So it's actually a very important question, actually, where she is working and what she is doing right now.
And so I guess, are there any other pieces of her record that you want to, lift up as particularly troubling at this time?
I feel like we could go on and on. It is unfortunate that there are any number of examples there. The examples around the overall evaluation of chemicals, the specific examples of stopping protections from known bad actor chemicals like methylene chloride, which has been lethal, and we have met the families of people who have suffered from using these chemicals. She has weakened proposed protections on trichloroethylene, which is another chemical with a rap sheet. So there are, unfortunately, too many examples to go into here of the way that she has represented the chemical industry's interests over the interests of public health. And we need, in the CPSC, we need an advocate for public health. We don't need another advocate for the chemical industry.
And so how has Congress reacted to her nomination?
Rachel.
You want me to take this first?
Sure.
So there have been quite a number of senators and members of Congress who have raised concern about her record and her appropriateness to head the CPSC. Congressman Pallone has raised concern about her work. Senator Blumenthal raised concerns when the information came out about her involvement in suppressing the CDC guidelines. Senator Cantwell has raised concerns about who she's working for and what her current roles are. So I think there is really beginning to be a chorus of voices that are raising serious concerns that must be addressed, really about the appropriateness of her nomination and her confirmation to the CPSC.
And I guess, the sort of logical question that one might ask is, what are the chances of actually defeating her nomination? Her confirmation?
I'm an optimist sometimes. And I really think that her record that Liz and I have discussed is so problematic. And it is unequivocal that her career has been spent stopping consumer protections and raising questions about them and raising doubt about the need for them. And I think that people and members of Congress, and particular senators who are going to be making this decision, we've been hearing quite a number of folks express concern about this. So I think the more folks are aware of her record, the more we will be hearing of a louder chorus of opposition.
Mm-hmm. And it did insert in the comments on the video spot where you can take action on our website to actually contact your senators. Liz, do you want to say anything about, the path to defeating her confirmation?
Well, Rachel is an optimist, which I very much appreciate about her. I think that we can be optimistic with a track record here. The last time there was a nominee from the chemical industry that needed a Senate confirmation, we were able to get enough comments in to members of the Senate to have senators step out from both parties and say, this is just the wrong person to be in charge of this agency. We need to do that again. We did it with defeating Michael Dorson's nomination to run the chemicals program at EPA. We should be able to do that with Nancy Beck's nomination to chair the Consumer Product Safety Commission. As Beth pointed out, there's a link in the chat, or Beth always knows these things and I never do. There is an opportunity on our Facebook page to send a message to your senators and urge them to say no to Nancy Beck.
Great. Anything else you want to share?
I just could not underscore enough how important it is for folks who truly care about the health and safety of human beings. I think it is incredibly important to communicate with your senators that this is just the wrong person for the job. At this time when consumers are fundamentally spending their days differently, where people are in their home, kids haven't been at school in months, and with summer about to emerge, we need someone who is focused on reducing deaths and injuries from consumer products. And unfortunately, Nancy Beck's entire career, whether at the EPA or OMB at the ACC, has not been spent protecting consumers, but rather thwarting the very protections that consumers so desperately expect from agencies like the Consumer Product Safety Commission.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us. And we definitely urge everyone to take action. There's an online action you can take to contact your senators by email. And then anytime you can tweet them or write on their Facebook pages. That's also a great way to get in touch with them publicly about issues like this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.